Be starting recording in a second. Okay, so I'll just introduce everyone that's maybe watching this later. So this is a video all about how to approach the merit criteria in Unit 19 spreadsheet modelling. Okay, and I've got Kieran Davis with me here to help me with that. You right there, Kieran?
There you go. Hello, I'm good.
Excellent. Right. So first thing you've got to do at this point is take quite a big deep breath, Kieran. Okay, because the merits are not easy, especially merit 2. Okay, there's M1, M2, and M3. There's 3 merits in this part of the unit. There's an M4 as well. That doesn't come in until assignment 4, but and it's not a bad one, M4 actually. But M1, M2, and M3 are pretty tricky, especially M2. Okay, so you've got to really sort of gird your loins at this point and get ready for a bit of hard work. Okay, well, it starts off quite easy. M1 is a bit of a piece of cake actually, but it makes up for the fact that M2 is a tricky one. And in this unit, M2 is quite often the one that breaks people. They say, I'm not going to bother. Okay, so you've got to be prepared for that. Yeah. Are you ready for all that?
I think so, yeah.
Excellent. Right. So M1 and M2, if I just zoom in a bit on that, M1 and M2 are both available in 19.2. And then M3 is available in 19.3, which I'll go over in a second. And then M4 is available in 19.4. I'm not going to go over that in this video, though, because we haven't started that assignment yet. So as always with the assignments there, it starts off with a table. It doesn't tell you what to do, but it gives you the first sort of the first clue as to what you're going to have to do for each of these merits. M1 is use formatting to enhance complex spreadsheet model. M2 then, which is the real beast, is to use advanced formulaic functions to process information. And like I say, M3 is in the next assignment, so I'll go over that last probably. So you should have a look through the assignment brief here. Really quite carefully, but what I'm going to go down to where it actually talks about M1 first of all. For merit criteria in M1, right, the learner must use formatting and styling tools appropriately to enhance a complex spreadsheet. The learner, that's you, also needs to ensure that each worksheet contains appropriate header and footer information, and also appropriate page orientation is used. Visible cells must be formatted correctly, and the spreadsheet would need to contain minimal errors in the data and demonstrate a level of creativity to meet the needs of the user. Okay, basically what that means is you're going to use formatting tools within Excel to make the spreadsheet look nicer, but also to make it easier to use. So what I'll do is I'll actually open up your one, Kieran, and use that as an example. When you open it, it might open in the desktop version. Always best to have the desktop version running this, because the features work better. So there's your. Okay, I'll do a read only there. That's okay. I won't need to change it very much. So yeah, you've got at the moment you've gone through all the past criteria, worked through the videos. And you've got your buttons and stuff working nicely there, some lovely graphs as well. So basically this is what a spreadsheet looks like. This is more for people watching the video afterwards, Kieran, really, rather than for you. This is what a spreadsheet will look like after you've got all the past criteria. I will need to mark this for you, Kieran. There's usually some little tweaks that are necessary, but it's clear to me that you've done everything that was asked for pass. I just need to check it now. So I'm going to go to the first sheet that's got anything other than buttons on it. And you can see what you've got basically now is a spreadsheet that works pretty well, but it doesn't look too bad, but it could do with a little bit of formatting, and how do they put it in the assignment brief? Yeah, formatting and styling tools to enhance the spreadsheet, but also to make it easier to use as well. So what we're basically talking about is these tools up here, which is the border tool, the fill tool, and the text, the font color tool. Okay, so what these do basically is they do things like, if I choose some cells, you can put borders around things of all various kinds, thick borders, or borders like that, around various groups of cells, or ranges of cells as they're called. You can also put fills of any color behind cells, and the third button there changes the color of the text, of course. So for example, if you decide to have quite a dark background, you can have a light text to compensate for it. Yeah. So what the first part of M1 is about is using those tools, which are actually quite simple tools, to enhance your spreadsheet, make it look nicer, but also make it easier to use as well. So for example, you might consider doing something like, say, using a background fill to show where the names are, for example, to sort of to make it clearer where the names are, and then maybe a different one for the addresses, for example. Does that make kind of sense there, Kieran? Are you still with us? You got a bit quiet. Yeah, Kieran, yeah, you're there. So the first bit of M1 is basically about using these three tools here to make a spreadsheet look nicer, but also easier to use as well. Now, with this being a merit criteria, that's pretty much all I'm allowed to tell you. Really, the rest is up to you. Those are your three tools. These are not difficult tools. You know, level 1 students and below can use these tools. The challenge for this first part of M1 is to use them in a way which improves the, in the words of the assignment, improves the formatting and styling of the spreadsheet, but it's also sort of reading between the lines of that as well to actually make it easier to use. So that's the first part of M1. How does that sound, Kieran?
There you go. Yeah, sounds okay.
Okay, now if M1 was just that, it wouldn't be a merit criteria. There's a bit more to it. So it says, it carries on then, also needs to have ensured that each worksheet contains appropriate header and footer information, and also appropriate page orientation. Okay, now what that means is normally in Excel you can't see the headers and footers, not like in Microsoft Word, for example, where you put stuff in the header and you can see it on the document in pretty much any view, certainly in the normal view. I don't know how much you use Word these days. I mean, we should be going out to all the Google stuff now, really, but I think you do use Word maybe with other lecturers, I think, do you?
Yeah.
Yeah, and you quite turn competent at adding headers and footers in Microsoft Word.
Yeah.
It's quite similar in Excel, but the single biggest difference is that you can't see them in the normal view. Right? You have to change views and then add your headers and footers in, then go back to the normal view. Now, the way you do that is down here. If you can follow my my pointer down here, there's 3 buttons down here next to the zoom control. Right, next to those, which control the views in Excel. You can get them from the headings, from the menus as well, but I tend to use it. You can get them from the view. You can get them from here as well. Normal, page break, and page layout. I tend to use these ones down here. The normal view, which is the one we're used to in Excel, is that one there. So if I click on that, nothing happens because we're already in it. If I click on this one, it changes to what they call page break view or page layout view. Sorry, page layout view, this one is, yeah. They're in a slightly different order to what they are in the menu. Page layout view, that's the one we need to put the headers and footers in. And the other one is something called, this is page break view. Down here, I think, yeah, page break view. So in the order that down here in the buttons, they're in the order of normal view, page layout view, and page break. Same 3 buttons up here, but they're in slightly different order. But as a level 3 student, I'd expect to be able to cope with that. But the one we're after for headers and footers is this one here. And you see how it changes the view. This is normal view that you're used to, and this is what they call page layout view. And this is where you get a lot of the M1 criteria from, because you get to add headers in here, footers as well further down, and also change the page layout as well. Because if you notice at the moment we've got landscape view, but we're quite often with spreadsheets, landscape view is not what you want. You want it to be, sorry, we've got portrait view at the moment, which is upright like that. Yeah, quite often landscape is better for spreadsheets because they tend to be wide and not very tall spreadsheets. So anyway, I'll come to that in a second about page layout, because the first thing you've got to do for this part of M1 is do headers and footers. Now you will have to do these on every sheet, so you'll have to do them on home and student and courses and enrolments, but you won't have to do them on every page of each sheet, because once you put a header in on this page, for example, it'll be on this page as well and that page. And what you need to do is do well, we don't tend to print stuff out these days, but what used to be a standard header when we printed stuff out. And again, if you still use Microsoft Word with some of your tutors, this may still be the case. The standard header, let me get a good zoom in here. There we are, the standard header, because with Excel you get a 3-part header. The standard header, let me get this right now because I haven't done headers for a while because we don't print things out. Yeah, on the right-hand side is your name. So please don't type your name in. Okay, type Kieran in there. Yeah, Kieran Davis in there. In the middle, some sort of title, an appropriate title for this sheet. Bearing in mind, this header is only for this sheet, not for every sheet in your Excel spreadsheet. So a suitable title, that's for you to come up with, because this is a merit criteria. So a suitable title. Then over here, the date. And you can get the date automatically. If I go to design up here, which automatically pops up when you turn headers and footers on, is current date. And you put the date in like that. It comes up as a code to begin with, but as soon as you click off, the date comes up. And because you've used a date code, that will always be correct. It will change each day. Because you're happy with headers there?
Yeah. Oh, Andrew, I just want to ask, you know, when we're on page layout, the exact layout, you know how each sheet is in like 3 different pages?
Yeah.
Do I only need to put the header on the first page?
It doesn't matter, because if you put it on the first page or the second page or the third page, it appears on all. It doesn't
matter. Okay, that's fine. Okay, great.
You see, it's I've only done it on page 1, but it's on every page. So I've only done it on the first page there, but it will appear on all of them. That's the same in Microsoft Word as well, actually, or I can't think of any other software where you have headers and footers, but it's the same in Word as well. Yeah, they'll appear on every page. Yeah. So, and the footer, the standard thing to have in the footer is nothing in the left-hand side of the footer, nothing in the right, but in the middle, the page number and also the number of pages as well. So it'll say like page 1 of 6 or page 1 of 12 or whatever. And again, you can do that automatically. If you go to the design, into head and footers menu and then design, and then you go page number, okay, and that puts the page number in automatically. In fact, if I click off somewhere there, it's got the page number, and see, and it's on page 1 on page 1, but it says page 2 on page 2 and so on. But it's quite nice to have like page 1 of however many there are, probably 4 or 5 in this one. So I'm going to put a space in, then the word of, another space, and I'm going to click that one there, number of pages. And when I click off, it says 1 of 4, 2 of 4, 3 of 4. Yeah, it's quite useful for that. It's less useful these days now we're not printing stuff out, to be honest. But it used to be really useful when we were printing things out, and you do still print stuff out occasionally. Yeah. So the first part of M1, you use the borders tool and the fill tool and the text color tool to make your spreadsheet look nicer, but also easier to use. And the second part of M1 is headers and footers. Yeah. So you okay with that so far?
Yeah.
Right. The next bit of M1, unfortunately not the final bit, but the next bit is about page orientation. Now, you see here you've got 4, if we printed this out, it would actually print on 4 sheets. But there's very little on the last one. Can you see there's just if we zoom in on the last sheet there, there's hardly anything on that final sheet. There's just the sort of left-hand edge of your nice ring pie chart here that appears on page 4 that's just pushing it over onto the 4th sheet. Now, these days with climate change and everything, if we were going to print this out, it might be better to try and print it onto fewer sheets by just trying to mess things around a little bit. We could do that by moving this graph, maybe on, but that's going to be quite difficult. I think we could maybe put it there, and then once it recalculated itself, sort of thing, it wouldn't go onto that 4th page. But what also might work is if we just change the orientation to landscape as well. That can work sometimes. Landscape being that way around rather than that way around. Yeah. At the moment, we've got portrait. So let's try that. All you've got to do is you go to page layout, orientation, landscape. Okay. And it hasn't changed it because I've got something selected, I think. And landscape there. Now, for the time being, it's actually made things slightly worse. Actually, it's now going on to 5 pages. 1, 2, 3, 4. But we might be able to move things around a bit so that it only prints on. Probably we'll get it down to 3 actually if we move things around a bit. Maybe move your button. Whoops. Maybe move that button over here. Maybe instead. Just mess around with things like that. To see if you can get. The idea is with this bit of M1 is to try and get it to print on as few pages as possible. Okay. Which seems weird these days because we don't print things out, but that's the demands of M1 is to get it to print out on as few pages as possible. Yeah. So does that make sense there, Kieran? Yeah.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Because we're almost there with M1 now. There's just a couple of things. So we've got the using the formatting tools to make it look better, but also easier to use. You've got headers and footers and orientation. The final bit of M1 is to make sure that any cells that have got anything in them are formatted appropriately. This is what it says on page 6 of the assignment brief. Visible cells must be formatted correctly, or appropriately is better. So this is all to do with, if I go to the home page here, the home sheet, the home ribbon, you see here you've got, at the moment it says general here. This is the formatting of the cell that I've currently got selected. So I've got A1 selected at the moment, okay, and it's set to general. Now, to get M1, none of the cells that have got anything in them anyway none of them can be formatted to general. They must be correctly formatted to one of the other options that you've got here. So, for example, in spreadsheets, a lot of it will be number, or possibly currency, or maybe dates, or possibly just text. And in fact, well, you can tell me this, Kieran, which of these? You've got general, which is not allowed because general is the default formatting, but it's not allowed because you need to show you can format correctly and appropriately. So other than general, you've got all of these options. Which one is best for A1 there? All it's got in it is the student number. Which one of these do you think would be appropriate for that cell?
Would it just be text?
Just be text, exactly, yeah. And in fact, for most of this sheet, in fact, it will be text. And don't worry, because you don't have to do that one, then that one, then that one. If there's large groups of cells that need to be formatted the same, you can do them all in one go, but you need to choose an appropriate formatting from that list, okay? And it can't be general. It only applies this to cells that have got anything in them, so don't worry, you don't have to do all of these and these, or any cells that have got, I mean, that graph isn't in a cell as such, it's over some blank cells, so it's only cells that have got something in them. So in this sheet, for example, it'd just be those cells, okay? You okay with that?
Yeah, sounds good.
Let's have a look at another sheet though, because text won't always be the most appropriate one. From the list there, which would be the most appropriate for A1 here?
Would still be text, would it? Yeah.
Yes, it would. Yeah. What about B6 there?
Text as well.
Still text, because if it's got any text in it at all, if it's got any alphanumeric information in it at all, any text, then the only thing you can do is text, really. What about that one there?
Currency. Yeah, currency.
Yeah. What about these?
Just dates.
Dates will be right. You may find, by the way, as you're going through this, that sometimes Excel will have done it for you automatically. So you just need to check that if Excel has changed the cell or cells from general to something else, you need to check it's the most appropriate formatting from this list, okay? Because it might not be. Excel doesn't always get it right.
Okay.
Okay. Still one thing, I think I was going to do one video about all these merits, but I think we're going to have to do one for M1 and one for M2, I think. The final thing is for M1, is that there must be minimal errors. Okay, for a pass, you're kind of allowed a certain number of errors in the spreadsheet, really, but at merit, you're expected to have checked everything very carefully. And there are no spelling errors, for example, no errors of any kind, no grammar errors, no errors in the formulas, no errors in the typing in of information. No errors of any kind, okay? And that's M1, so I did start this video by saying M1 was easy. There's a lot to it, M1 actually, but they're all fairly easy things to do, really, but you've got to be really organized and really conscientious and very precise about everything, yeah? How's that sound, Kieran?
Yeah, sounds good. Yeah.
So just in summary, then I'll go through the four things you have to do for M1, right? Using the standard formatting and styling tools that I mentioned earlier in the video, you need to use them to enhance the spreadsheet in a way that makes it look nicer but also easier to use. You've got to then use appropriate header and footer information and appropriate page orientation, like I mentioned earlier on. You need to check that any cells that have got any content at all are formatted appropriately from the list I went through there earlier. And finally, there are no errors of any kind in the spreadsheet at all, okay, and that's what you get M1 for. So actually what I'm going to do, I'm going to stop the video there, okay? So anyone watching this video afterwards, I'll talk to you, Kieran, about it once I stop the video, okay? Anyone who's watching this video later on and is not sure about anything, just have a look at the video again is the first thing there, because I'm not, apart from what I've said on that video, I'm not allowed to give you very much more help, really. And it's really up to you whether you can get this merit or not now. But if you are really stuck, I may be able to give you a little bit extra help, but we do need to be careful with exactly how much, okay? Just going to stop the video there.